Welcome to Slackin' Off with Brady Slack.
Welcome to another episode of Slackin' Off. I'm your host, Brady Slack. Today's episode was supposed to be with a very important person to me. However, this individual unfortunately got a little sick. She can't speak. And so we are going to have that individual on our next podcast. But I've had a couple experiences recently that have made me want to talk a little bit about um, or have given me some ideas on what I want to discuss. I can't guarantee that this one will be a very long podcast. We certainly won't do any slacking off. Well, we might a little bit, but it'll all be fun. Um, and some of these experiences have been a culmination of a lot of time that I have spent kind of in my entrepreneur journey that I think a lot of people find themselves in. And I want to start off explaining what I want to talk about today by two different stories. The first story has to do with a conversation that I had with a client probably about 4 or 5 months ago. We were doing some planning. Yeah, it would have been about 5 or 6. We were doing some planning in November, end of November, beginning of December last year, so 2022. And before we kind of dove into the planning aspect and talking about investments and tax deductions and estimated taxes, we were talking about some books that we were reading. Um, as an entrepreneur, I'm constantly in one book or another. I'm in two different books right now. One talking about profit first. I think it's a phenomenal concept that a lot more people should implement. And then another one about mindset and the application of mindset to man. Um, but as we were talking, my client made the comment that he no longer reads books to understand the what behind the success, but to understand the why or the how. And he explained to me that as you read self-help books or entrepreneur books, that they all have an underlying message. And I know I've said this before on different podcasts, but they all have the underlying message of work harder, wake up earlier, be smarter, be kind. Um, but what he found that he wanted to learn more in these books was what made that individual tick? Why are they acting the way that they're acting? What about their situation makes them successful? Was it how their parents raised them? Was it the environment that they grew up in? Was it the negativity that actually drove them to experience or want to experience success? And by doing so, this client of mine felt like he was or has been able to implement different practicalities into his life or that of his children as he's raising his children to help them become more successful. And I thought this was extremely interesting. One, because I feel the same. I feel like the more books I read as far as self help goes or mindset goes, they all have similar messages. Um, and it's all in the eye of the beholder as to how they'll apply those messages to their life. And I would argue that every time you read some of these different books, whether it's The Secret or Richest Man in Babylon or um, right now, another one that I have right next to me was Think and Grow Rich. All of these mindset books, every time you read them, they have a different message that you kind of pick apart. So you continue to read them for these messages. But I've started to do similar things where if I read a book, I will maybe do a little bit of research on the author or who the story is about to see why they are the way they are and how I can take those lessons and apply them into my life. The second story that I have is more so an experience. I was at you call them a meetup, a bunch of different entrepreneurs, and there was a question that was posed to a panel. Now, the people that were on this panel have been in business for a long time, very successful individuals, really great individuals, might I add. I do know them more so on a personal, at least some of them more so on a personal level. And someone from the audience, they were doing a Q&A, someone from the audience got up and they asked the question, how do you find a good mentor? Now, in business, it's really, like I said before, business is 75% hard work and determination, and 25% make it up as you go. Which is again, I like, I still would argue that that's how it is. But it's interesting because this individual is asking how can I find a good mentor? And the premise behind the conversation, as she continued to express some of her concerns, was that she's she's previously hired mentors who turned out to not be good mentors. She had felt like she had wasted money on those mentors, or they were leading her in a direction that she didn't necessarily want to go, or didn't feel like it fit what she was trying to accomplish. It didn't mesh with her goals, didn't align, if you will. Um, and so she was asking, how can I find a good mentor? Um, and I wanted to use these two experiences to highlight what I wanted to talk about today. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this today, other than the fact that the guest that I did have planned got sick and needed to reschedule, and I needed to get an episode done anyways, and I still wanted to provide value for the listeners, was that I've recently attended 3 different mastermind events in the last month. It's been a crazy month. My wife is sick and tired of me traveling. To be quite honest with you, I'm sick and tired of me traveling. And I was at this last event, and my 2-year-old Koi, every time I would FaceTime him, said, "Are you coming home, Daddy?" So it was a long month. But I was at these 3 different mastermind events, and when you go to a mastermind event, typically you're at that mastermind event because there is a specific topic, a specific person, a specific group or skill set that attaches you to that mastermind. And so you attend that mastermind to try and better yourself, better your business, better your brand from that mastermind. And all 3 of these masterminds are different in nature. I joined the first mastermind, and when I joined this mastermind, there was a specific opportunity for my business to increase our processes, our procedures, potentially look at streamlining a funnel for advertising and marketing. Plus, for me, when I join masterminds, and this might be the most selfish reason why I joined mastermind, is it provides me with an opportunity to introduce myself to other entrepreneurs, put myself in their circles, and provide value to them. No one loves taxes. Accounting is probably the worst thing that an entrepreneur wants to implement or try and tackle within their business. And so it provides me with an opportunity to provide immediate value to them and in turn help them in their business, which just again selfishly gives me the opportunity to help them and build my business. So, anyways, the first one, very strategically for me, was to build out the processes in my business. And to be quite honest, with you, within in the last year, we have nailed that, especially in certain aspects of our business, and we continue to increase our business. In fact, I was just talking to one of my advisors today who has worked with 3 other firms in the last 2.5 years and has vast experience. He's a great advisor. And even he was like, this is the most efficient tax season that I have ever been a part of. And the processes, the systems, the softwares that you guys utilize in your accounting firm make tax filings go by seamlessly, which was great. That's exactly what we're trying to accomplish for a couple different reasons. So that first mastermind, I accomplished that. Now the second mastermind that I attended was actually the first meeting that they had for that mastermind. I ended up joining that mastermind. Um, and the reason that I joined that mastermind is because there are quite a few individuals in that mastermind who are on the mergers and acquisitions side of business. They're brokering businesses. They're consistently buying and selling businesses. They're always investing into bigger deals. There are several individuals who are doing high 8, low 9 figures in business every year. And the reason why I wanted to put myself into that room was because I am definitely the smallest fish in that room, My business is doing, I would argue that my business is not the biggest business in that group as a collective group. And I want to get to a place where those people are. I want to have access to the deal flow that those individuals have access to. And I want to, I have certain goals personally that I want to accomplish, whether that be gross revenue on a yearly basis or net worth by a certain age. And I hold myself to a high standard. And I felt like that mastermind would give me the opportunity to grow and push myself to grow at a much faster pace within that group than outside of that group. Again, like I said, as a selfish way, it provides me and my firm with the ability to work with really good clients who need high level services. Um, and these are the types of clients that we love to work with, the people who are going through mergers and acquisitions, who are buying and selling businesses, how we can help them set those up in the most tax efficient way. What things can those individuals invest in outside of their businesses to potentially help them save money on taxes? Those are the people that we love to work with, and we actually do a really good job working with those people because they treat our job more as a partnership than just a service provider. And so there's much more opportunity for a give and take, and we can provide much more value to those individuals. So that was the reason why I wanted to be in that room and join that specific mastermind. Plus, a couple of really close friends, really close mentors are in that group, and so it gives me the opportunity to just build a better friendship, brotherhood with some of those individuals. And as an entrepreneur, that's important to me because I it's hard to find that outside of business. Um, Now, the third event that I went to is a group that I have been a part of for the last year and a half, 2 years. The reason why I joined that group at the beginning was specifically I was a newer entrepreneur. I wanted to figure out how I could set myself apart in my space, whether that's accounting or taxes or consulting. And they were, but they're good at kind of the branding, allocation, the logos, setting yourself apart, how to start. And so that's why I initially joined that group. And they had an event. They'd asked me to come and speak at that event. Um, Great event. I thought it went good. And the topics that were covered were really good. Well, the reason why I'm giving you this backstory is so that you can kind of understand that along my entrepreneurship journey, I have put myself into positions where I am not the smartest person in the room. You cannot be the smartest person in the room when you are an entrepreneur and wanting to grow, because if you are the smartest person in the room or the person that makes the most amount of money, odds are you will not continue to grow. You will stay stagnant. While I was at this last event, it held in Las Vegas, um, shout out to Jimmy Rex. He was there, gave an awesome talk. And one of the things that Jimmy talked about was, well, this is a question that I'd asked Jimmy. Now, for those of you who know Jimmy Rex is, as he would call himself, he brands himself great. He's a real estate expert, but he's kind of stepped away from real estate and stepped into the position of a men's coaching group. Um, he whole he's the host of the We Are the They Mastermind. It's a men's coaching group, and he's in an authoritative or leadership position within that group. Um, and kind of going back to the story of this girl asking the question, how do you find a good mentor? I always find it interesting, and I know I've talked about this. I think I talked about this with Lami, who was a guest on my show. I've talked about this with Ty Thorne, who was a guest on my show. I've talked about this with Coda Ivers, who was a guest on my show. When you get into the entrepreneurship space, there's always someone who thinks that they know what it takes to be successful. They think they know how to position yourself within the market, and there's a lot of fake gurus out there. And so I had the perfect opportunity. Here's Jimmy in an authoritative and leadership position to ask him the question, who do you look to for mentorship and leadership? Who coaches you? If you're a coach, who coaches you? And the reason why is I received some sound advice from another very successful individual, probably about a year ago, and they said, "Don't look at who your coach is, look at who your coach's coach is." And the reason that you should do that is so that you can see who's your coach trying to become, to make sure that they are receiving the advice that you want for your business, because what they receive they're going to give. Anyway, so I asked Jimmy this question, and there's a couple individuals who he has hired that he mentioned to personally coach him. One of those individuals that he mentioned was Ed Milet. Now, the reason that I really was impressed with this is because I think Ed Milet is one of the most captivating speakers and successful individuals right now. I actually had a person. We were in a VIP event about a year and a half ago with Ed Milet. He gave some great advice. I think he continues to give great advice. And it was really cool for me to take these different stories and apply them into what Jimmy is trying to accomplish with We Are the Day and who he is hiring as his coach. There was a couple individuals that I can't remember right off the top of my head that he mentioned he has hired as personal coaches to help him, but I can see why the men in We Are the Day are getting the success that they are, because Jimmy is personally pushing to get the success himself. Why do I mention that? Well, there were a couple experiences, or there have been a couple experiences, even with myself, where I look back and I can say, at the time, that individual might have been a good fit for what I was trying to accomplish at the time, but was that individual the person that I should have hired at that time? And again, like I said, the answer is yes on some of them. The answer is no on others. I have a personal coach. I meet twice a week with my group that is coached by this individual, um, who will be a guest on the podcast at some point. And I have hired him. And at the time earlier this year, I was trying to find someone who, one of my goals this year was to become a better father and a better husband. Business is doing great. I don't have any complaints about it. Certainly, there are always things that we could do to improve, better things that we could do to grow. But this year, I wanted to take time to become a better father and a better husband. And there wasn't one person that I could think of who was doing better in business than me, had a better physical, or was more physically fit than I was. Mind you, I'm not very physically fit. I could do a lot, but I used to be. I used to have a six pack. Now I don't have a six pack. Um, who was a better family man than I was, and was more spiritual than me. Um, and except for this one individual that I've hired as my coach, Cody Jefferson. And the reason why I did that was more selfish than anything else. I need to be better physically. I want to be 55 years old, and I still want to be able to whoop my 2-year-old ass. He won't be 2-year-old, but I still want to take him, and I want to look like I'm 25. Like I could be on the movie 300 when he's older. I want to set that example. I want to become more spiritual. I believe in God. I feel like I have a decent relationship with God, but I know it can be better. I want to be more present for my wife and my boys. So that's why I hired this individual. Um, like I said before, I also joined this other group because very quickly I want to condense the amount of time in which it takes me to be to the point where I am buying and selling businesses, where my success is a little bit more fruitious, and that I am doing some bigger things on the business side, which is why I joined that other mastermind. At the time when I joined some of these other masterminds that I've alluded to, were those the right fits? And I can point out that some of them were and some of them were not. The ones that were because I looked beyond the individual that was coaching me and said, who are they trying to become? Who are they looking towards to coach them? To try and figure out who they were going to help me become. The ones that did not work out were individuals that at the time were going to help me get to another level, but they themselves were not necessarily at the next level beyond the level that I wanted to get to. Now, from a tax perspective, who do I look towards, right? Because again, that is a large part of my business. I do trainings for my advisors pretty frequently, and I know that we have a continuous thread of questions and things that they ask me about. But who is it that I'm looking towards? Well, this is actually, it's kind of come around full circle. Today, there was an individual that followed me that I look up to in my professional space, and he followed me on social media, and I just reached out and I said, thanks for following me. It's kind of exciting for me because you are someone that I look up to. I want to thank you for everything you do for our space. And I want to thank you for the content that you continuously put out, the trainings that you continuously do that I attend, because you do a good job. I have monthly meetings, and I'm doing training with another individual that I look up to. I've spoken on stage with. I think he's a phenomenal individual. His name's Tom Wheelwright, because he does a fantastic job at taxes. He's always 2, 3, 4 steps ahead of everyone else in my industry. And I think it's important that my clients understand that I'm doing everything I can to make sure that I give them a competitive advantage when it comes to paying Uncle Sam. From a business perspective, I've hired individuals, like I said, who are in M&A, who are in brokering businesses, who have significant real estate holdings, whose businesses are selling for multiples of 18, 20, 25, because I want to get to that point. Just naturally with what I want to do, I want to have significant real estate holdings. I want to have investments that pay me passively, so that I can continue to advise and so that we have good clients. And I also want to do things that my clients are doing. I want to understand what they're doing because I feel like that's a great um, kind of separator within my industry. A lot of advisors don't necessarily do what their clients are doing, from a higher level. And so I think that's important. Um, and why this conversation? Well, you yourself are most likely in a position where you are trying to achieve a goal that you have set and want to expedite the time in which it takes you to achieve that goal. Hire a mentor to do it. You can either spend time studying, research, taking a certificate course, going to school to do some of these things, or you can hire someone who has been there and done that to teach you and expedite the time it takes you to learn that skill, to do it, which will help you earn money faster. There was someone on Facebook that I'm friends with not too long ago who I thought gave some great advice, probably about a month ago. And they said, if you're not making over $250,000, you shouldn't be investing in anything else but yourself. I don't know that I would put a dollar amount to it because I think it's important to always continuously learn, but you should continually invest in yourself. Speaking of investing in yourself, there was another speaker at one of the events that I was just at, James Malinchak. Again, fantastic speaker. But he told the story of an actor. I apologize, I can't remember who the actor was right off the top of my head. But James was interviewing this actor, and this actor had won several nominations, was one of the top actors at this time. And James had asked this actor, he said, well, you don't have any coaches, do you? And the actor responded back with it, no, I don't have one, I have 7. Now, he kind of talked about the inverse of this comment. He said, well, is he this actor that has 7, how did he phrase this? He said, is it because of this actor that he has 7 coaches, or is it because of those 7 coaches that he is that actor? And typically, like I said before, if you look at who's your coach's coach, you will find out who your coach is going to be. And that's something that I've kind of taken to heart over the last little bit, which again, kind of the reason why I gave the other example of what my client and I were talking about as it related to the books is because owning a business or entrepreneurship or investing is 75% grit, determination, and hard work, and the other 25% is just figuring it out as you go, making stuff up. if you are able to determine the who and the why to help you get to the what quicker, you will make more money in the long run. As it relates to books and courses and education, if you can find the underlying why or how to get to the what quicker, just like you can with a coach is going to, or a good mentor, a mentor or a coach is going to help you get to the what quicker. You are going to be able to make more money quicker. I have found that there are a few coaches that I've had who have not helped me find the what quicker. And had I paid someone else, it might have cost me a little bit more money, but I would have been able to recoup that money quicker. And so I think it's important, and I just wanted to highlight this because of some black and white examples that I've gone through with some of the events that I've been at. Hiring the right mentor can be tricky. You should do your due diligence. You should do some interviews. A lot of times it might seem at the beginning like it's more money than what it might be worth, but I can promise you that I have made all my money back tenfold from some of the investments that I have made into education, coaching, um, and gaining the expertise that I need. To kind of end on this, and this is going to be a really good precursor for who my next guest is. My next guest is someone who values education. They are an educator. It is someone very close to me, and we've had we've had very heavy discussions around education and schooling. And it is someone who has, at times, I felt been critical of what my decisions have been to maybe not go get certain degrees or licenses and go different routes with different certifications and different licenses, um, because of a scholarly mindset. Um, we've recently had to kind of unpack a couple of these conversations, and it's been kind of fun to see the evolution of the conversation from when it first started, which we'll get into. Um, and I made a post not too long ago about uh, my viewpoint on education. Um, and as an entrepreneur, you will learn very quickly that it is the opportunity to continue to evolve. Um, I believe it was with Los, who we talked about this before. Entrepreneurship is the most pure form, in our opinion, of finding oneself. I've learned more about myself in the last 4 years than I think I would have otherwise. Um, Admittedly, although I probably should, I don't attend therapy. I don't go to therapy. There are probably things that I could unpack in therapy, but I learn a lot about myself. I find myself as I push myself to be a better version of me, to be a better version of me and show up better for those around me. Like I said, my wife, my boys, my family, my employees, my partners. And I wanted to, again, provide some insight as to what my experiences have been and what are things that I look for when I try and find a good mentor or a good coach, to hopefully provide the answer to the question that this other girl had at this meetup. How can I find a good mentor? How can I not get hosed on a mentor? Like I said before, I've seen some real horror stories. And you'll find that there's lots of coaches, there's lots of gurus. If you're trying to be a guru, find a guru. If you're trying to be a coach, find a coach. If you're trying to be a specific professional in a specific niche or space, find someone who's been there and done that. They don't necessarily need to be doing it right then, but find someone who's been there and done that. Look to who they look towards for their experience and knowledge, and then help identify what's going to get you to that next level. Um, I hope this has been a little bit helpful. It went a little bit longer than I planned on going for, but again, I felt like it was something important that we could talk about in the meantime, and provide a little bit of value with. Again, I appreciate the dialogue. I appreciate the conversations. If you do have questions, please reach out. You can find me on Instagram at the Brady Slack. Like and subscribe to it on YouTube. Let's have a conversation about it. Please DM me with any thoughts or experiences. I'd love to hear about them. I'd love to share those. Um, and I wish you the best of luck. I really do. Again, this is Brady Slack with Slackin' Off. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to Slackin' Off with Brady Slack.